Look at environmental and social considerations, as I always imperative that we are leaving them with something worth their while. So we should be responsible in our endeavors for industry, have something which they can continue earning, tourism, agriculture, feeding themselves and the rest, while we focus on industrialization and such. Gender and youth, this has been a key focus area. Youth, we still continue to have a very large youthful population. And I'm happy to see a large number of us have shown up because we're interested in what opportunities lie there for us. In terms of gender issues, women have brilliant business ideas, but they have certain challenges. And we are working to address those because without them, individual businesses growing into small and medium enterprises, we will not have a stock of local, medium, regional, or large enterprises that grow out of our women, youth, and the small and medium enterprise sector. Digitalization, we all saw how things were disrupted when we were hit by COVID-19. But the world also continues to evolve, things continue to move. And we cannot be left behind. We cannot think that doing things the same way as we always have is going to enable us to progress. So we need to embrace digitalization. We need to see how it helps us deliver on our mandate, but also how our customers can. So what do we do for each of these specific sectors? Just highlights. On primary agriculture, we help with the acquisition of inputs for improved breeds for people either in dairy or beef and and meat. Crop varieties for those who are farming. How do we have drought-resistant crops, for example? How do we have higher productive crops and access to those? Again, improved farming methods, mechanization, irrigation technology, and a key thing, once we are able to increase our productivity, how do we manage post-harvest? We've had challenges, these issues are real. We've had Kenya blocking our exports of maize, reasons aflatoxin, or we end up sometimes overproducing, and how do we manage that excess stock? To avoid people being discouraged, I produced high on one side, another time the prices are too low. So how do we manage all those focus and reinforce interventions in primary agriculture? So agro-processing should be the next step from there. We finance plant, machinery, warehouses for your storage, silos. We help with marketing logistics. The key thing is market. How do you get to your market? Because market is critical for your cash flow. And that is what you ultimately get judged on when you apply for the facilities. There are instances you might need working capital. Yes, there's an excess of a crop. You need to finance that. You need to process it. So there's also working capital facilities available in those two areas. Manufacturing, equipment, plant, machinery, construction of factory premises. Should you need to expand, or are you venturing into it? Again, there's no point having the machinery without the working capital, so we structure our product, our solution to solve those issues as they appear. For tourism, we focus on accommodation facilities, we focus on development of tourism sites, heritage sites. I believe the Honorable Robert Mwesigo has challenged people that, do you know where these sites are? Even when you know where these sites are, how are you taking advantage of that? So we can look at projects in that space. We also look at purchasing specialized tourism transport facilities and equipment, as well as working capital support to the sector. In terms of human capital development, I did speak to education in the TVET, technical, vocational, and entrepreneurial training. What do we do there? We facilitate acquisition of scholastic, laboratory, or other specialized educational equipment. Things like student shuttles that facilitate students getting to their institutions, take care of their safety, and other things you might need for school operations. We also do construction and expansion based on your business case, based on an assessed need. Health services, hospital and health facility construction and expansion, specialized medical equipment. We did see that challenge as we got into the pandemic, where all of a sudden we realized we have a need or a shortage for certain specialized equipment. We are happy to look at those based again on assessed needs and business potential. We want to improve and increase the capacity of local contractors to engage in some of these big contracts. It's not fair, so we are working with the different government entities to see these projects and the benefits. In hydro, there still continues to be a need agro-processing. So should there be such projects, there's a few products and services that we offer. There's a requirement, there's that need for instances. We have that thing, I have security, and therefore I can understand that and the dynamics around that. To feed really hard capital expenditure. Asset finance, this is for the acquisition of equipment, buildings, but I have, say, a contract, and I have a certain percentage of what I require by the bank. Again, if you have a collateral challenge, but a viable project that requires the asset finance solution. The farmer group model, this is interesting because it's around mobilizing people, cooperatives, and speaking to value chains. So we finance groups, 50 to 400 members, who are participating in certain value chains in your region, coffee, dairy, for example. If there's tea coming up, things like that, we are happy to look at the farmer group models and how they feed into larger agro-processing and eventual marketing or export promotion. So funds in this can be used for inputs, for storage, or even crop finance, among the other needs, in an entity that qualifies. And then after we have helped you build up enterprise value or the value of your own through other arrangements. How does this help? Equity is participation. So we are in with you for the profit, for the loss. Our gain is on the enterprise value that we can generate, how we can improve the valuation of this business, and then we come out having helped you on the advisory side, building your business, and then divesting those shares to other people, other individuals in the country or in journey with you, increasing the value of our investment as UDB, but also allowing other people to be a part of a bigger story and have something that they can live on for their children in terms of shares in a business, dividends. Again, we also have structured commodity finance. If you've secured a contract to supply, say, schools or hospitals, but you need that boost, that's need around that contract, and help you. Trade finance, if you're importing raw materials or if you're exporting, there's a team that has the capability to help you with that. Other than money, I think so there's project preparation. A lot of you said, I have an idea, I have a concept. I believe there's potential in it to make money. So you can come, deal with our team, and they'll help you refine this concept. They will help you make it into something that's bankable, provided it'll be a game changer, a disruptor that will help us solve another national issue. So project preparation and business advisory services. So these, we help you transition on that journey from an informal individual. Once you register, like URSB has mentioned, our partners at URSB have mentioned, once you register a company, more opportunities start to open up. But you still need help. You still need some development around bookkeeping, record keeping, management, governance. So the bank will undertake to do this for you at our expense and get you to that level where you are now a very bankable individual, or when you have started to secure all these new opportunities that are out there for you to enjoy. We also have special programs, and this is still addressing some of the critical areas. SMEs form the bulk of the business in our economy. So how do we increase access to finance for them, for their sustainable growth, for their development? We have those program. We have financing options that will be shared with you in detail once you speak to some of the members of the team. Women financing segment, how do we increase the participation of women in the development agenda of the country? So this speaks again to access to finance, skills that you need, access to other factors of production. You need to acquire land for a project. You need to acquire certain types of machinery. Again, we walk this journey with you. And youth, how do we enhance that transition from the informal? How do we build on your innovations? How do we get you starting on this journey to growth? So we have that, and one of the key linchpins, or one of the key things that supports our strategy of building from the bottom up, is the advisory and business incubation services. So this will continue to be a critical part of any of our interventions or our participation in your project. Where we identify a need to refine something, there will always be this advisory, there will always be some kind of support from our team. Just to take an example of how we support our smallholder farmers, speaking to primary agriculture, again, there's that value chain approach. There's no use producing without having identified your market, without identifying who's going to take your product, without identifying what other options are there for you, what other opportunities are there. So we work with the pre-upstream, that is production support services, in terms of inputs, distribution, mechanization, and technology that's needed at that level. Then are linked into larger agro-processing entities, midstream processing and value addition, make that move from green bean to maybe roasting, for example, and downstream, how do we support trade, commerce with cooperatives and associations? How do we build on those linkages, and how do we support you? So the proposition that we have there looks at amounts from about 50 million to 5 billion shillings over a 5-year tenor. These can be secured with shuttles, that is movable assets that we spoke about, vehicles, things like your stock, land titles, land agreements, and we help you transition those into proper titles, and guarantees. So the interest rates in that intervention are between 10 to 12%, and repayments will always be aligned with your cash flow cycle. Because this is another area where a lot of us run into trouble. The nearest available option to finance you is a bank. They want their repayments on a monthly basis, but you only earn, say, half a year, every 180 days. So we also offer the appropriate structuring in that value chain process to enable you to service your debt and enable you to benefit. Some other, just building up on that, we have about 100 groups that we have supported across the country, 10 outgrower schemes with some of the larger processors, about 50 billion investment in dairy, oil crops, coffee, cereals, banana. There's also over 80,000 beneficiaries. Now, speaking to beneficiaries, this happens directly. There are those who benefit directly. There's also what is stimulated indirectly. So if I'm a farmer, the direct beneficiary, I need certain support, say on the input side, say on the veterinary or medical side, and In that way, I create indirect employment, indirect opportunity, and then there's that gets induced, where someone picks up on the chance to transport and such. So we have all those kind of beneficiaries. These are the direct beneficiaries, the 80,000. Business advisory, again, has been key to the development and growth of those farmer groups. And good book performance is one of the outcomes, with very little or no default. Why? Because we've looked at the whole structure, we have intervened at the appropriate points. So additional innovations that we should see coming into this space in the financial technology, for the other markets in the region, and seek out those opportunities and how we can finance them. Does it take to borrow from UDB? The eligibility criteria. One, apart from being, is it in agriculture, is it in agro-processing, is it in industry or manufacturing, tourism, or infrastructure or human capital development? Anything outside that we will not be looking at. So it is key that you come to us aware of what it is you want to achieve. Again, be a registered entity, business registered in the country. URSB is walking this journey with us. They are, partners in helping you from the idea, from the startup, all the way to when you start the formal process. And I think the benefits have been listed. The benefits are endless. Once you're registered, you're able to pre-qualify, secure contracts, which contracts, for example, you could use to secure your facility. So it's key that we know who we're dealing with, they are formally registered, and and those opportunities can come to you. Business types, it can be a startup, it could be an existing business. We are happy to help you start your journey, realize your dream, or if you're already midway your journey, how do we make it that you're more productive? How do we make it that you grow and you can access all the parts of the country and other markets? Business potential, we need you to be able to demonstrate feasibility and viability. It is critical that it's not a copy and paste, which is, I think, one of the tragedies that befalls a lot of businesses in our country. You see someone do something, you feel I can also do that, but you do not understand the dynamics. So feasibility and viability are key. We will have that conversation sometimes back and forth, but it is critical that you have analyzed the business potential and you can see that it's feasible and viable. We look at your character as well. Do you have a good borrowing history? Credit Reference Bureau. That again is another innovation that enables us to utilize our scarce resources effectively. Let us lend to those that have demonstrated the potential to pay back. Certain times there might be challenges, but that does not stop us from having a conversation to see if there is a solution on the non-financial side for UDB to enable you come back into this space where you're able to borrow and improve or enhance your record. Because that is not an end in itself. It's just a hiccup in the road. If you can improve your behavior, if you can improve the constraints to your business, then we can travel this journey. Business health and ethics, again, all your statutory requirements should be adhered to. All statutory requirements should be adhered to. Are you starting a project with environmental impact? Has NEMA said, go ahead? Are you allowed to do business in a municipality? Do you have a trading license? Or are the people who you said are the directors and who can empower your business to borrow, who can give permission for the business to borrow, are they up to date? So again, that's key. All your statutory requirements should be up to date. They should be adhered with, lest we end up, funding something that has to be shut down. So we are very, very critical around this. So things like certain instances where we ask for tax clearance, there's a reason why. Because should there be any issue and agency notices are issued, that tax takes priority over the bank's lending. So we want you to be in good books with the Revenue Authority, such that we don't give you money the day they sense money is on your account, they block it, and our project fails to take off. So again, come, let us have this conversation. You have challenges with URA, they are our partners in this journey, and we can negotiate with them, and we can start to get your compliance in order. Some of you who are beneficiaries of the EU tourism intervention by the bank can attest to this. You had a sit down with URA, you scheduled your payments, or some were deferred, reconciliations were done, and you were then able to access our facility. So it is not about being scared, about complying. Come, let's have a conversation, let's interact with our other partners and see how we can help you. Quickly moving on, your contribution would require your equity contribution from as low as 10% all the way to 60%, depending on the project's specifics or the level of risk we have assessed. So you should also come to the table with something and show us how we can build on that, unless you're a startup, and then we have to start that journey with you. So collateral considerations, other than equity considerations, what is acceptable? Again, I've spoken about land, buildings, contracts, provided we can find a way to structure correctly, stock that you might have, provided, again, it's tied into some sort of structured payment, or you're working with an entity that's willing to vouch for you. We have been able to fund such projects. We've been able to structure something that works, so that if you don't have enough in terms of value of land and buildings, if you don't have enough in terms of cash, you are able to access financing or a solution that will enable you execute your project, and we can all reap the benefits from that. Then again, for specialized groups, we have varied processes. So SMEs and special programs, you will see a different type of documentation requirements, but these really are the key documents that we would like to see. The constituting documents and resolution to borrow. We all know that once you're a company, it is only the directors, shareholders who can empower that business to borrow. So sometimes it is also critical that you review this. Part of why we go back and forth is that when you set up your company, you said your borrowing limit will be 50 million shillings, and you come to the bank asking for 1 billion. So again, make sure constituting documents and resolution and powers to borrow speak to what you require. A feasibility report, your business plan, what is it that you want to do? How are you going to benefit from what you're going to do? And how do we also assess the milestones, or that you are achieving what it is you want to do? Startups, again, what are your estimates and what informs those estimates? Existing entities, financial, tell you, or those who comply, it is a statutory requirement that you assess the health of your business from time to time. You have to know, how is the money I invested doing? So again, would like some financial statements for at least 2 years. We might do a revaluation, but do you know how much your security or collateral is worth? It meant that you register with the Credit Reference Bureau to enable you access financing. Then current historical offtake agreements. How do we assess how you've been performing? What kind of person are you? These speak to character. The performance risk might be assessed based on that. The volume of sales could be confirmed based on that. And again, we can understand some of the relationships you have with your suppliers and buyers and structure accordingly. Then statutory compliance, proof, NSSF, URA, these are a must in certain instances for existing businesses. And again, we will encourage you as your business grows to register with taxes, but NSSF, because it is not about how you only use individuals up to a certain point. What have they prepared for themselves? So, yeah, but I want to start a clinic. Why can't you finance that? sharing, what is their experience, so we don't want to see those things where you favor on that mandate. The needs are not as their IDs to confirm the statements where you have been borrowing your business, you know what your assets are, you know how much you owe on the bank and what you're going to. The promise to register, guard the capital, and tightening on one side. For those who are tech savvy, and submit it to our head office. It will start the evaluation process. So you said, I need machine X, Y, and Z from a supplier ABC. Or, you're saying this is the output of you want to produce, help us better understand committee for certain amounts, which decision is either to approve that loan, to defer to the applicant, and the reasons, justifications explained, and maybe a further discussion with the bank, but you will always be informed the basis. I think a lot of this was touched on.